Hello, naturals! Welcome to Go Natural English. I'm your English teacher, Gabby, and I am here with a wonderful guest today, the expert English teacher, Rebecca from lovelearningenglish.com. Rebecca is originally from the UK and now lives in Canada, so she has the best of both worlds with English. And she's an amazing teacher and a lovely person, and I'm so excited to say welcome. Hi, Rebecca.
Hi, Gabby. Hi, Naturals.
How are you doing today?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Really excited to be here and chatting with you.
Yeah, me too. I love bringing in experts like you to give your advice and your strategies and some specific ways that we can improve our English. So actually, today I want to ask you a question about finding the right English teacher. I mean, we know a lot of English learners like to learn with tutors, online, in person, like one-on-one instruction, live people, let's say. And
Yeah.
the question is, how do we find a good teacher? There's a lot of people out there, and how do we know who is good and who might be a waste of time or a waste of money? I mean, it's important to figure that out, but how do we do that? So can you talk a little bit about what you recommend students do if they're looking for a good teacher?
Absolutely. So I think obviously it depends on what your needs are and what you want to gain from your lessons. But ultimately, we are learning English so that we can speak English. So we can learn grammar online for free. We can sign up to courses. We can buy books. We can pay for expensive grammar courses. But what you can't get anywhere is a real face-to-face teacher. You can't buy that in a book. You can't buy that on a course. So the idea is that you find a teacher who gives you the opportunity to speak. Of course, the teacher can teach you grammar, but when they're teaching you grammar, make sure that they give you the opportunity to speak, to use that grammar. So yeah, I think it's really important that people look for someone who's going to enable them to use their language.
That's a really great tip because it reminds me of, when you're taking a language class in high school or a regular classroom, a lot of the time the teacher is lecturing and you're listening, and maybe the teacher's a great teacher, but you don't really get a lot of time to repeat or to practice or to get that one-on-one feedback. And it's not the teacher's fault, because if they have a classroom of 30 or 40 students, it would take a long time to go one by one saying, okay, everyone, please practice. So I love that tip that you want a teacher who's going to encourage you to speak. And I would add to that, for you learners, don't be afraid to speak up and just go ahead and practice, right? You don't have to wait for the teacher to say, now your turn. You can just go ahead and start repeating and go for it.
Yeah, and the more advanced you are, the more the teacher should be letting you lead and talk about well, there's two things here. So that the more advanced you are, the teacher should allow you to lead, but also give you the opportunity to bring new subjects, bring videos to the lessons. But the teacher does need to push you.
Mm-hmm.
So at an advanced level, it's very easy to just get comfortable in what you're talking about. So the teacher does need to kind of push you a bit and say, hey, let's talk about this topic that you've never talked about before.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you'll think, I don't have the vocabulary for that. But most of the time, vocabulary is transferable, so you can talk about new subjects.
Yeah.
And I think for lower levels, the teacher should offer more guidance, kind of guide you through step by step through a conversation. You don't want to be stuck as a beginner or an intermediate, desperately trying to think of the next thing to say, because that's so hard. So I found it great when I find teachers who are asking me questions all the time, keeping the pace going. And I've had other teachers who are waiting for me to ask questions. Now I'm still stuck. Questions are so difficult to ask in your second language. And it just kills the conversation if the teacher waits for me to ask the question. So the sort of like the teacher needs to gauge your level and ask questions appropriately and bring content appropriately to the lesson.
Yeah, and I know you're really good at this. We talked before about, different teaching methods and how you like to teach and how you'll allow the students to have space, like kind of a fill in the blank. Like I don't remember exactly what you said before, but it was something like, I live in New York. You live in? And you'd naturally want to fill in that blank, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's giving the students an opportunity to use the language they already know.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the times we're in lessons and we're being crammed with new vocabulary, and we're still not getting a chance to learn or practice rather what we know.
Yeah.
And I found some very frustrating situations where I just want to practice with someone who knows how to guide me. But instead I'm being told about this grammar structure or being given 10 new vocabulary words to memorize. And I always sort of come away feeling a bit disappointed because I wanted to just practice.
Was that in French or what language?
French.
French,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I've had some amazingly bizarre experiences with my French lessons, both online and in the classroom as well. So,
what would be some questions that we could ask a teacher before we pay for lessons? Like what should we ask to make sure that they're a good fit?
well, I think if speaking is your main objective, then it's important to ask them how they structure a class.
Yeah.
Ask them, do they teach grammar? Ask them how they teach grammar.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there's nothing wrong with learning grammar, but when you're in a lesson and you're paying for that lesson, you don't want to be talked about a new grammar rule. You want that lesson to give you the opportunity to use an old grammar rule. So maybe I've got one great teacher at the moment and she will explain a grammar rule to me, but then she gives me the space to use it as much as possible.
Wonderful.
Whereas I've had other lessons where I spent an hour being told, blah, 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 this is how it works. And then at the end of the lesson, I'm like, oh I still didn't get a chance to say anything.
Oh, I'm remembering now a couple of times when I took Portuguese lessons online. I'm always working on my Portuguese, and I remember one teacher who was really great, giving me very specific advanced vocabulary, and I learned some new words, and I thought that was helpful. I mean, I learned maybe 2 or 3 new words in an hour, not many, but at least something. And then I remember working with another teacher, and she just said, "Oh, no, your Portuguese is perfect. Why are you here?" And and I was, I felt good about my Portuguese, but I also know that my Portuguese is not perfect and I have room to grow. So my point is, maybe ask your teacher what level they usually work with, because the first teacher who helped me with vocabulary, I think he was used to working with advanced students who need very specific advanced vocabulary, not even academic words, but more real life words. Like I was learning very specific words that I could use to order food, which is kind of a basic skill, but I just didn't know the specific vocabulary that's not really in the textbooks. So the second teacher, I think she was more used to beginner Portuguese learners. And when I started speaking somewhat conversationally, she thought, oh, you don't need my help. You're over beginner level. But
and I think it's really important that we find the right teacher for us. There's all different teachers teaching different things, and maybe you want to really focus on grammar. Like I have to focus on my passé composé because I'm just really struggling it. And one day I'm going to have to go and get a grammar teacher and have that grammar lesson. But it's about figuring out what do you want to practice and who's the best teacher for you. And if speaking is the thing you really need help with, don't let yourself just be talked at. And then you come away an hour later and having said nothing. And this isn't just for teachers, like this is for language partners, tutors, any kind of speaking experience. Make sure that you're happy with what you're getting. If what you want to do is speak and you never get a chance to speak, you've wasted your money.
I love this. These are great tips. So, naturals, what Rebecca is telling you is to check out your potential teacher or your language teacher. Ask them some questions like, how do you want to structure the lesson? Do you teach grammar? What level do you usually teach? And do you allow time for me to practice my speaking a lot? Ask a lot of questions so that you don't feel like you're wasting time or money after maybe the lesson doesn't go as planned. You can ask questions. It's totally okay. So I think these are great tips that you shared with us, Rebecca. Thank you so much for that.
Okay, you're welcome.
Now, if we want to learn more about you, what's the best place to learn English with you? Do you have a website or social media we could check you out at?
Yeah, you can find me at www.lovelearningenglish.com, and that website will take you to my various media outlets like YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. I'm just starting on Instagram as well. So, but check out the website and it will take you to all my other social media.
Wonderful. That's easy. So lovelearningenglish.com. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today, Rebecca. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure too. I'm really pleased to chat with everybody, and I hope some of my tips have been useful.
Absolutely. See ya.
Thank you. Bye-bye.